So, okay, we now seem to be in a closed session again, and I see the group is getting smaller. Maybe the others are too tired after lunch. But nevertheless, let's try to address this last topic, cooperation with industry and the interaction with technology infrastructures. Again, yes, we have 4 questions like in the other sessions. I felt in the last 2 sessions that these 4 questions were rather limiting sometimes, and Maya gave the right input. If you want to take up something else besides those questions, please do so. We just have to see that we keep the time. And I will do my usual program, so I will present the question on the screen, and then the floor is yours, and you put some questions, give some answers, whether they are to the question or whether they are another aspect which we need to address. Feel free to do so. So, let's start with the first question. What are the main challenges for the RI industry cooperation? What are the key actions needed in terms of providing RI capacities and services needed by industry? For instance, legal framework, business models, quality assurance, user support, and whatsoever. Okay. So let's start.
Well, only to open the, I am Moises Weber from Nipimidones. Only to open the discussion, I think the first we need is a longer term in the collaboration, because the problem we are finding now with the industry, is said by the industry to us, is that we have periods of low work for the industry and in which we cannot, or they cannot collaborate with us, because the question is in the opposite sense to that, but I think it's bilateral. I mean, if the industry is working with us, they are interested, but in both directions. And in the short term, we can collaborate with them, but we cannot modulate the workload we launch to the industry. So in a longer term, we could modulate this collaboration to the time in which we are not, or they are not, working in contracting, in construction of research infrastructures. So I think a longer term in our, not necessarily in the program, but in contracting or framework contracts would be very useful for this collaboration.
So you mean a continuous funding from the public sources as to provide the basis to keep your staff and your capacities?
Yes, we are working, for example, in Spain, in Nipimidones, in the Spanish side. Mm-hmm. We are trying to get funding for R&D in our technologies. During the time we are not launching contracts with the industry. So in that time, this funding sometimes come to the companies and later to us in this direction. We are transferring technology in this time, but the most important point is that they are continuously working in our technologies.
Thank you. If I correctly understood that this is industry as a supplier, I think, industry as builder of our research infrastructures. We in the LEAPS DESI context, we have both. We have having access to the next generation of brilliant mirrors, magnets, etc. With many of the same problems, but also, of course, industry as a user. If I look here at the terms, the keywords mentioned, I think indeed quality assurance is something which is really relevant. If one wants to really be part of industry supply chains, then there's a strong need for quality standards, for really standardization efforts, and I think that might indeed be something interesting to look at. How can facilities be incentivized and pushed into developing standards which can then make it easier for industry to use them in a predictable way. And the other, user support, definitely also a main issue, because classically the expectation of an industry user is not to have all the in-house expertise and do the experiment the way an academic user would do it, but really say, this is my problem, give me a solution. And that's completely different working mode, which requires a lot more user support.
Okay. Let me rephrase a part of the question. What are the main challenges for you as RISE working for industry for their product development? So I assume there are legal challenges. There are challenges also in the funding. We just had an institute in Germany which was built up as a research institute, medical research institute, and now they are expanding into the medical industry, or serving the medical industry. So we have problems with the EU funding. Could we finance it to 100% again, as we did? So.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Diana Zavala Rojas from European Social Survey, ERIC. I wanted to highlight one of the main challenges we face with the collaboration, and this is inhibiting our access to funds in the work programs in the Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe and so on. That is that our definition, or our since conception, we are data providers. I represent a digital infrastructure which mission is to provide data, human data, as a public good to Europeans and beyond. So when we are asked to collaborate or to provide services for industries, in a way we contradict the open science model. We were open and fair before. Last week I was presenting at an ESFRI forum, and I coined the term before fair and after fair. We were fair before fair was coined in 2016, but now we're being kind of forced to show that we're able to service and help others to provide products, whereas our mission was that data at that time, and we were one of the first ERICs, 2013, when we were constituted in the 2001, most data in our discipline, our domain was closed. So we actually came into light to provide Europeans with open access data. So now I was discussing with someone in the lunch break about that industry should be called commercial access. By definition, I'm open. So then when I face, I myself write a lot of applications for the work program. When I face the part of what is your impact in industry, I say, well, I do have to monitor first 200,000 users, which is not easy. It could be the case that if industry means public institutions, governments, policy impact, there I could have some. But if it is oriented to services needed by proprietary communities, when my code is open, my data is open, and my definition is to be a public good. In summary, I always coin this sentence in these applications like, we are open access, open science by definition. Sorry, I don't have this potential for collaboration. And I hope in a way these requirements in the work program could be tailored to the type of research infrastructures. I'm speaking about one, but I'm representing several of the social sciences. The THESA is the same, Clarin is the same. We are there to provide public goods. So how can we close that? Thank you.
Okay, is there a reply? So on the one hand, we have open data. We are always working for open data, free access for science. But industry needs confidential data. They need proprietary developments. Any ideas for solutions for that?
Pardon? Keep it open, yeah. So, and take that requirement probably from digital infrastructures that are public goods since conception in the work program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Question: would it help if the by Commission funding or whatever, there are models to be developed how to cooperate with industry? Ideas for contracts, ideas for how to organize proprietary data in an open data environment? Okay, maybe that's the wrong question.
Annika.
I mean, in a former life, I was coordinator of the DESCA Model Consortium Agreement, and that is an attempt for Horizon Europe projects and framework programs before to have a common model contract. So I'm a strong believer that wherever possible, you should try to find the parts where you don't have to discuss every single time, and then you can focus on what's really different in the individual project. To what extent it's possible in this context where we're talking contracts with large industry, contracts with small industry, contracts with industry in Finland, Portugal, Slovakia, in very, very different communities. I mean, medical research has completely different challenges than physics and so on. I think it would be a massive challenge. So if your proposal would start with a feasibility study of what is realistically possible, then I'm in favor. But I think it's going to be really, possibly it's rather about building blocks and shopping lists and explanations, rather than saying, okay, this is the model contract for industry use to RI at the end. I think that I don't believe in, I have to admit.
I think in order to deal with it, we first need to stop talking about industry as if it was just one thing. I think there's different types of industry, so we need to group them in those that are helping to build a certain big machine. And there's also industry that wants to make use of the data that's being produced by the infrastructures. And then thirdly, and I think that's going to be very interesting, it's the kind of AI companies that want to have access to the data and might actually also help the infrastructures to deal with the amount and the complexity of data that they're having. So I think talking about industry in general is useless. And I do support her. I mean, there's also public good, and there's also governments, there's public organizations that are using the data. Why the focus just on industry and making money, which actually causes a lot of legal problems as well. I mean, for example, in my position as funder for research infrastructure, I can't do much with industry, as I'm actually being blocked by our legal department, because then I'm actually sort of pushing against state aid rules, and the only way to get around it is to give my research infrastructures less money than they need, which they won't like, because then I have to go below 50% financing. Now I can go up to 100%. So this is my problem. Thank you.
The state aid rules are one of the problems. They are not one part of the solution. Okay. So we should convey this message. Okay. So, well, unless something else comes up, I'm now changing again to the next questions, which is assumes already that we cooperate for the support of industry. Theoretic question for the beginning. In Germany we have Fraunhofer. Fraunhofer is a research institution which is financed by 2/3 by public money. And they have
Maybe you should use your microphone because
again, yeah. Okay, sorry. This question here, how to ensure complementarity of the activities of RISE and TI, providing effective support to industry, assumes already we are going for industry. Now, a heretic question from my side. In Germany, we have Fraunhofer financed with 2/3 by public money, and they have to raise 1/3 by cooperation through contracts with industry and so on. Should this be a general model to motivate RISE to cooperate with industry? I think just a provocation to see how
you really
react.
want us to copy the modeling of Germany?
No. So what could be, yeah.
I'll try to approach an answer. I think it depends massively on the mandate. What do you expect of a facility? And an observatory, you expect different things from. You want to understand the sun, you want to understand the origin of mankind, you want to understand. I mean, you are going to have also solar flares predictions, so you're going to have a massive benefit for society, which sometimes can be a really tangible benefit for industry. But if you force that kind of infrastructure into this kind of business mode, then you're going to kill it. Then you can just say, okay, let's abandon observatories. Can be a political decision, but I'm against. But yeah, looking at where can we facilitate? And then looking at infrastructures like DESI, they are set up by the public funder at the moment to do fundamental science. And it's also indeed a question of communicating by the funder to the infrastructure. Okay, do we still believe that is your main task, or do we actually feel, no, you should change, you should do 50% industry and 50% fundamental science? That would be a massive change in what you have to do. I personally would again think it's problematic, but I think it's useful to look at where can we facilitate the use of industry usage of such facilities. And then coming back to what I said before, if you look at more standardization, that's really something where I think you can bridge the gap. If you look at looking at how to improve user support to industry, that's also a way to move to that direction. But the Fraunhofer angle, I personally would not be in favor of.
Okay, thanks. Just a couple of remarks. First, to the topic of Fraunhofer. When I was looking at an art of study on technology infrastructures, Fraunhofer was mentioned as one of the technology infrastructures, not just research infrastructure, but also technology infrastructure. So it's interesting how many of the examples that the art presented of technology infrastructures were in fact what ESFRI knows as research infrastructures. So I guess this is the sort of the complementarity issue here. That's one. The second issue, when it comes to the state aid rules, one of the big pressures in the discussion, and you are probably well aware of this, by the TIs, is to change the state aid rules so that the TIs could get public support money as well. Maybe that could be something useful also for the research infrastructures who cooperate closely with industry. Because if the state aid rules will be relaxed for one type of infrastructure, they ought to be also applied to the other. So, maybe there's an opportunity there to rediscuss this and open this. As far as the research infrastructures and cooperation with industry, we found a lot of very conflicting issues which were raised by research infrastructures, and funding was precisely one of them, but not so much from the point of lack of funding, but how to charge industry for something. How much of that is public good, and how much of that is a particular service designed for a particular client, and how to separate the two. This is a very sensitive topic, and at the end of the day, the group discovered that actually we have opened more questions that we got answers to. So, I think we should pass on the message to the next round of ESFRI drafting groups to re-examine some of the issues again, and because they do deserve closer look. We only touched the surface, identified the problem issues. And of course, there's much more work to be done to really help research infrastructures. Should they cooperate with industry? When they get the question of the impact, there's always a question also how much you do for it. Yeah? So, in a way you are pushed towards that, and on the other hand, you're drawn not to do it. So it is a sensitive issue. So just an intervention from the survey findings.
Okay, thanks for reminding me why we don't only rely on Fraunhofer in Germany. We need others. Okay, my conclusion so far would be RIs, TIs, where's the border? We need to find models, but not requirements, for the RIs, how to cooperate with industry, how to ensure that the funding can continue, and how to open for them the possibility to generate additional funds by cooperation with industry. So it should be an add-on, it should be not something that detrimental to their basic funding. Okay. So,
maybe one final remark. I was thinking now, looking at the question, you are actually differentiating between RIs and TIs. In the state aid rules, that differentiation is not made. RIs is actually everything that's a research infrastructure, could be research for industry, and it could be research for universities or academic research. And it would be good to try and sort of improve those definitions in the state aid rules. And I know there will be new ones in 2024, I believe, prepared. But it would be interesting to see if, as ESFRI, we could have a message towards the European Commission to better put that into the state aid regulation.
Thanks. I wasn't going to say anything after Maya mentioned it and all, but it's a small can of worms. But I think the point you were making, which is really important. Maya's right. Says, well, if technology infrastructures and state aid, we need to have that question with research infrastructures. Therein lies a problem. You're right. We're not going to, and I don't know if we want to change the definition of research infrastructures, but we need to understand when we say research infrastructures, particularly in the view of state aid, and I don't know it as much as you guys do, but when we talk about research infrastructures in relation to state aid, we have to be very clear what are we talking about, because you can bet your bottom dollar there will be 1 billion research infrastructures all of a sudden all over Europe saying, oh, I'm a research infrastructure, so am I a research infrastructure. Are we talking about ESFRI infrastructures? Are we talking about EU-funded research infrastructure? Are we talking about landmarks? Are we talking about ERICs? And it might be a case where we start somewhere and we build from there. I'm asking questions. I'm not saying that they are, but so there's different. So we just really be careful, because we would open up a bottomless. Well, maybe pit's the wrong word to use, but you understand where I'm coming from. Everything and everybody. Oh, I have a bit of equipment in my lab, so I'm a research infrastructure, and I think we need to be really careful, because we try to do this. All countries were asked. list. Science Europe did it was years ago. We did it saying list your research infrastructures, and Germany, I remember colleagues from Germany listed 4 or 5 research infrastructures, and some of our funders went around Ireland and we listed about 30 research infrastructures. Going, that's funny, isn't it? Germany has 3 research infrastructures and Ireland has 30. That's very interesting. It's because the definition it was put into context was completely different. So just need to be. Sorry, you remember this?
I just want to say that I agree, actually. So it shouldn't be about the definition of research infrastructures. The way I, at the moment, have solved it is actually by differentiating between exploitation cost and operational costs. And that seems to be acceptable to my lawyers, that I can pay for operational costs, but exploitation for them is actually making money. So that's what I'm doing now.
Well, just to continue in the beautiful state aid discussion, I do think that the current state aid rules differentiate. They don't use the same terms as we do, but they are using the words like testing facility or something like that for with different percentages that can be allowed as a state aid. And well, then the question is, well, what's the right approach? Should the industry be subsidized in Europe or not? And we are definitely not the ones to, let's say, solve this question. We just want to be clear on what we can do. And as research infrastructures, what's the remit? What our, let's say, founders or what our statutes say about what we shall do. And that's the limits that we have to perform any other activity. And just maybe one more note on cooperation with industry from my Elixir experience, because Elixir is bioinformatics, also free sort of open data. And let's say with the industry impact, it shows that, well, there are companies being established using those free data resources, building up sort of application level on top of those. That is sort of like the intermediary towards the industry, because let's say maybe the raw data or what's available for the research purposes might not be suited and directly for the companies, and there's, let's say, maybe 1-2 layers to get the sort of translation into the company language and company usefulness.
Okay, thank you. It's a specific problem, I think, for the data management, to which level we go. So I understand currently we cannot really have a definition in terms of funding and state aid for RIs or TIs, but what should be done is a clear definition of what any research institution, not necessarily infrastructure, could do in cooperation with industry without endangering their basic funding. So there needs to be some clear rules, right? Okay, no opposition. Please.
I just had another comment. Facilities like telescopes have almost no experience with industrial users. That's not to say there aren't applications. Observations of satellites by radio or optical telescopes would be a current example, and some of that is happening. But one thing that would help is some sort of forum for us to engage with other facilities, research and infrastructures who have more experience dealing with industrial users. And so this is partly a cue for a comment on forums that Isabella might make.
I wanted to make later on. I'll do this later.
Okay. So again, it's a question of promoting an exchange of experience of RIs amongst each other. Some have quite a lot of experience with industry, others, depending on the topic of what they're doing, not. And to see what could be achieved from that. Okay. Now I'm mean again and change question 3 which is again the question, what messages should we give to the EU concerning the work package 25-27 and concerning FP10 on RI industry collaboration and RI TAI complementarities? I think the main message was already done, that we need to have clarity on state aid rules. Anna?
Thank you. Yeah, that works. No, I think the one thing that was mentioned today, what is a bit different, what Michael said before, what with Marie Curie Sklodowska action, something like that would also work obviously with industry, where you have mobility and exchange for young people. In that sense, you have more, more skills and training on both sides, and you just foster exchange. So I think that'd be very important for the next framework program.
Again, I come back to the context of digital infrastructures that are data producers. I would say that something important for us, and not only my infrastructure, is to go a little bit beyond the definition of new product creation or new product conceptualization. Because, for instance, we could talk about the educational sector. We serve universities and students and future potential scientists, but then I would have to frame them as products. And I do think that that's very risky. So knowledge transfer, because of data use, intensive data use, and data providers should remain independent. There's also a lot of things going on impact in public policy, which we are asked because we are data providers. And again, I defend and support our independence, because I've been in several forums, ESFRI and so on, and my national and international infrastructural forums, and they say, oh, but you should provide data for policymakers. And then I say, yeah, but we are an academic data producer. Scientists apply on an open call to fill their topics. If I go data policy oriented, I will also go by the waves of political events, issues, and priorities that governments have at that time. And we have to think about the long-term definition. So I do think that some flexibility on the impact data producers are asked for will be very well received in several domains of data-oriented research infrastructures.
Well, one comment from my side. Is it necessary that your infrastructure produces these direct impacts, or couldn't this be a service provided by others based on your data? So, yeah, just a question.
Maybe for me, I think, well, I would like to see industry involvement as not conditional, okay? I mean, at least for us, we are basic science, fundamental science. We are, and the future application will be, when they will come, they come also with industry. We all have Wi-Fi. It came from radio astronomy, but it was not developed for the users first, for the normal use, okay? It came up later on. So the good science will find good applications. So what I would like to see, or I think now what I just observe is that research infrastructures and communities that have these research infrastructures, when they are good, they are experts and they know what they need, and there are different funds at the European Commission and so on, how to operate them, how to make them better with the technical development and so on. And this is, and they're supposed to be, they should not stay on the one day, they should develop, and this is, and they will do this through the competition. What we would, and as I said, there are the founding models that we can use for now. What obviously from these meetings, what we see here is the exchange of information. So we need fora. we need obviously also calls or this mechanism at the European Commission that we can do, that we can define a project where we will keep and bring together on different communities, different level, what we like, and so on. So, but it will be defined and it will be obliged. Everybody that signed to the proposal or to the project will be obliged to do this. And these fora are needed for exchange of information, and they will bring us for the new ideas, different directions of our development, of ideas maybe to work with industry or to make us better when we exchange how we operate, to see how the other operates, but also to bring us for the next steps on the political level where this goes.
Yeah, also one more reflection, because the collaboration is indeed not only for research industry as a user, but also industry as a supplier. And I think your field, for example, of course, this is completely beyond state-of-the-art, high-tech. You are demanding from suppliers. And in Leaps Innof, we've seen the same, that this is a really, really fascinating process where we try to develop together with industry the new generation of mirrors, the next generation of magnets, etc. And there working together at European level, rather than just DESI saying, I want to buy the new magnet, it makes enormous amounts of sense, because then we have the critical mass of all European synchrotrons instead of just one. And industry and small and medium enterprises are more willing to invest in actually developing the next generation of technology, because they see the market is not just one, it's several. So I think that's something where there might be a lot of benefit perhaps even especially for the kind of research infrastructures which come from the fundamental science. So that should be one way of looking at. So this infra Innof call actually that produced some really interesting projects along those lines. And on the RIT technology infrastructure complementarities, I think it makes perfect sense to keep the logic of technology infrastructures being also strongly involved in the pillar 2 of what we know have in Horizon Europe. So if there is something like a pillar 2 in FP10, then I think it would make sense for the technology infrastructures to really have a strong basis there, but to be really very careful that the research infrastructure, the classical research infrastructures considerations are also taken on board, and that indeed the whole ecosystem is looked at and not just the solely industry-related infrastructures.
Okay, my impression was always that the ecosystem of research infrastructures is an ecosystem with many different species. And I take this message, which I think we should forward, that industry cooperation could not be a condition for all, but rather funders should focus on or funders or organizations like ESFRI, governments should focus on giving or removing obstacles for industry cooperation, helping to develop examples, helping to remove things like or to clarify things like state aid rules. And we will have to live with the fact that many research infrastructures would not have a significant immediate impact on the industrial development. Okay. And the other point that Annika raised was this joint development. Infrastructures together have a purchasing power and could deal with industry in developing new technologies for their own purpose, which also might be useful for industry in selling it to others. Okay. Now, as usual, the last question, which is more or less the same as it used to be before, the landscape analysis. Is there anything we should address in the landscape analysis concerning the needs and future trends on industry and on interaction with technology infrastructures?
Maybe it will be nice to see the survey. How many of these research infrastructures, landscape analysis, how do they involve industry? How many they have, just to see the level of the industry involvement. And this is why I'm saying what I expect for research infrastructure first to be fundamental research.
Now, Maya or Michael, could you say something to that?
Well, the two surveys that we carried out, one when we were asking research infrastructures and the other when we were asking industry, showed that there is a very high level of cooperation. In terms of the replies we received from research infrastructures, it was more than 80% of those replies that we got that said that they do cooperate with industry. Very few actually make more than 20% of their funds from this cooperation. Usually it's at the level of between up to 10% due to various reasons. Some of the legal barriers, some of because the services are so limited. But yes, there is a strong feeling that there needs to be more cooperation. And to the question that we asked both in research infrastructures as well as industry, what they plan for the future, the answer was a very strong yes. They do plan to expand the cooperation. So there seems to be something very much present in the minds of research infrastructures, that they should also be involved with industry.
Thanks for this.
I think we also should enhance the role of the industry as a partner, but the role of customer supplier we used to have in both directions. So to push the framework to work as a partnership, to advance together in the different, also in the use of the research infrastructures.
So something like, again, a cooperation forum platform?
Yes, what I mean is that we have seen that as long as the time we are collaborating, as much new collaborations arise. So in both directions, when the industry needs us, and don't forget it, when we need the industry to help our facilities, mainly in large facilities, but everywhere anyway.
Okay. Now, is there any specific message that ESFRI should take up or look at in the landscape analysis? We do have, of course, the figures of this report. And
one of the particular concerns is that some of the working papers dealing with technology infrastructures seem to be quite reluctant in taking up different experience that ESFRI had with landscape analysis, roadmaps, gap monitoring, etc. And this, I feel, is in a way a danger for. So landscape analysis definitely needs to point this out, that if you do landscape analysis on research infrastructures, this is something which could be or should be used also by those planning a landscape analysis on technology infrastructures. You don't want to duplicate, you want to complement.
If I can comment, if I would be asked as Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy if we cooperate with industry, of course the answer will be yes. The question is on which level and for what. So, and I think what the landscape analysis will be used at the end is this also for the European Commission to set up the work program, to set up the next calls and so on. So this is, we have in our developments, for example, chips that they were not on the shelf to sell. It was under NDA, we could apply them in development of our equipment. And we were used, so industry was not interested to participate as a partner. So if I would have conditioned to have a partner's industry would be hard. They gave us this chip because for them, we were a test bed. So this is, there's always a way to attract and to cooperate. But so at the end, we could make our development without industry partners. And on the, as I said, on this other way, what will come, the industry involvement or industry application will come also later on. That's why I would stress once again that it should be not conditional.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the message we could take here is, yes, of course, the landscape analysis should reflect in certain areas where there is a large potential for industry cooperation, or where there's already an established industry cooperation, but it should be worded in a way that no infrastructure which is not, where the topic is not suitable directly for industry cooperation should be forced to enter into these. Okay. I'm not sure about the timing. Should we return now? Okay, that's a bad thing. So thank you very much for your active participation in the discussions.
Thank you.
Also thank you very much for moving the microphones back and forth. And my feeling is these discussions were much too short, so we have to think about a new format, how to extend the stakeholder forum reasonably. And I wish you, we see each other again in the plenary, and if we don't meet directly there, I wish you a good evening. Have a good trip home and take something from this stakeholder forum with you. We will definitely do. Thanks. Bye.